much the same. What we want to portray is that it's very important that whatever is envisaged is detailed and constructed correctly to give you the right end product. And this is one of the auditoriums over here. I think I'm going to hand it over to Shorab. He's going to talk about the technology part.
Yeah, this is a project, as I said, it's just on the border between Delhi and Faridabad, just after you pass the toll plaza there. And it's the brief for this project really demanded that we needed to bring the complex into about 4 buildings. They wanted to build it in phases also. So the question was that, you know, what happens in a lot of these complexes is that you sort of get 4 buildings, but they're sort of quite disjointed, not really connected in any way. And we sort of toyed with several ideas as what was the best way to really connect the 4 buildings, you know, because at the end of the day it is one complex. And we finally came up with this solution of a landscaped deck, which you see, you know, it sort of rises from the ground level and it actually culminates at the ground floor roof. So it's a deck, it's a landscape deck which is at the first floor level, so to speak. But what it's done is that then this deck provides shade, a sort of shaded connection between all the 4 buildings, and underneath this deck, you know, in that shaded area, we have food courts, we have a certain amount of, you know, retail which is connected to it's sort of office-oriented retail, and it's not an air-conditioned space. Some of the individual maybe restaurants and things within that are air-conditioned, but the space itself is sort of naturally ventilated, and it's a nice space to be in. We have these large punctures which bring light into that space also. So also what this did is that it actually gave the project 2 levels of public interaction. You have the ground level which is shaded, and during the nice weather or in the evenings you have this first floor sort of garden space, which is also a great place for people to hang out in, as I said, at least when the weather permits. So by this move, the project really got these 2 spaces for people to just hang out. These are some renderings of what the space was intended to be like at the ground level. And as I said, there are these giant cutouts which bring a lot of light and air into that ground floor space. On the housing front, this is a project that is currently under construction again in Gurgaon. And here, you know, the question was that it is a high-rise solution. It's 44 stories, and the question really was that, you know, what can we do on a housing project where we don't want to use too much glass? You know, it's sort of prohibitively expensive to do that. And what can we do to really come up with an interesting form? The nice thing about this project was that there were only 2 apartments per floor. It is a high-end residential developer. Each apartment is about 5,000 square feet. And the other good thing was that the developer, you know, because there are very nice views from where this is, because this is in the Gwalbari area, the developer was willing to sacrifice some area towards balconies. So, you know, most times developers really want to sort of use as much FSI on balconies that is sort of free. So here they were willing to sort of go that extra yard, and we were able to convince them that we should have larger balconies. So what we did was that we changed the apartments are exactly the same on all 44 floors, but we changed the shape of the balcony on each, or not the balcony, it's a sort of a wraparound veranda really. So on each floor the shape of the veranda changes, which then results in this sort of twisted sort of shape of the building. So structurally, it's an easy solution. There's no change in the structure of the apartment itself. It's only the cantilevered balcony which actually is changing shape, and which then gives it this interesting form. As I said, this project is still under construction, so we don't have any photographs of the completed project, but this is a rendering, sort of a more complete rendering. and there were some other smaller towers with it in the vicinity also. So a shot of these large balconies. The final architectural project is a project that is also in Gurgaon. It's a housing project. Now, I think what's very important is that I think sometimes the solutions really emerge out of problems, and I think, as you can all see on this slide, the problem is this site was the shape. I don't think we've ever worked with a sort of a crazier shaped site than this, and it was this shape that really led to the design solution on the project. So what we decided to do was that we decided to do this sort of necklace of low-rise and mid-rise buildings and puncture these low-rise buildings with 3 towers. So that's what you see very clearly now on this, that the what we call the low-rise apartments range anywhere from about 4 stories to about 12 stories, and the towers are tall. I mean, one tower is 50 stories, the other is 44, and the third one is 35 stories. So and all the units, because especially the low-rise ones, all look into this highly landscaped interior space, which is what we really call the valley, and that hence the name, which is Victory Valley, for the project. So I think the interesting thing was that even though we had this very irregular shaped site, we were able to come up with a design solution that really responds to that, and at the same time is an interesting solution also. Again, with housing, we find that really probably the single most important element are the balconies. So we placed, even on the mid-rise structures, we placed these in a sort of a more irregular pattern, just to try and create some interest on the facades. The central area, which we call the valley, is landscape, in keeping with the sort of ambiance that we were trying to create on the project. Even the pool is not really just a regular swimming pool. It's more like an extension of the beach. So it's got the sand edge to it, and we have lots of these sort of single height and double height planters to take the landscape up onto a vertical plane again. This is the project that we are doing in Gurgaon, which is where we're doing both the architecture and the interior. So it's what we really call a build-to-suit project. It's for a business house, and it's purpose built for themselves, and it's a small project, but again the company deals with stainless steel, so we're using a lot of stainless steel both on the building facade as well as in the interiors. There are some screens and
here the main intention was to use as much of their material as possible, and since we were using stainless steel, which can be finished in many different ways, and high gloss being one of them, we thought it would be nice to juxtapose that with a rough material to balance it out. So what we've done is basically the materials that we are using over here is an extensive use of stainless steel balanced by rough concrete, polished concrete, concrete panels, and a little bit of timber to soften the concrete and steel edge. So this is one of the rooms that we have proposed. Very sort of light, very contemporary. The cafeteria, just a quick render of these spaces. All the flooring is concrete, the serving counters are in concrete, a little bit of timber. So this is what was the approach over here. So the USP of this was this whole use of concrete and steel. So what I'm trying to say is it's very important to develop every building, every project has its USP, and that needs to come out and get portrayed very effectively. For Jindal it was this concrete and steel look. This is another building that we did for Adobe, which is the building was done many years ago, and right now we are going to do a refurb for the entire building. Again, this was a building which Adobe is a software company, and one of the most popular software is Photoshop, which is all about color. So we decided that this building needed to be all about color. So we used the three primary colors to define the building. So we have these very fluid lines which intersect each other, and they are placed against a background of a black box. So this is how we wanted to highlight the importance of the primary colors. And we have the entrance over here, which is sort of going through the folds of two colored planes. This is the entrance, the main lobby. Again, trying to bring in the colors and color white, which I'm sorry you can't see here, but bringing in the color juxtaposed against a very light palette. One of the design spaces. Again, the people who work here are very young, so it needed to sort of respond to their aspirations and their needs. Some sort of meeting spaces with writing walls, break areas. This is another office that we've done a couple of years ago. This was a building that we did for a law firm, and this is the reception. This is a law firm which has the most fabulous art collection that you can ever find. So the whole intention of this entrance area and the public areas was to highlight their art collection. So it is designed for art. It is not designed as a law office. It is designed for art. The workspaces are law offices, but the entrance is all about art. And this is, there's a nice big courtyard in the middle which lends a lot of natural light to the indoor spaces. We have basically a very, very light monochromatic color palette. And then we have the whole art area, the art walls. This is another office that we've done for one of our older clients, which is again just a small this thing. The whole office had fluid lines, and this is how this is just one of the pictures that we are showing of the reception, where we have fluid planes and peeling planes. So everything is going into each other, planes coming off each other, becoming lights, going back into the walls. So it was trying to create a bit of complexity through fluidity of planes and lines. This is another business center that we've done for them in Hyderabad. Here it's a different approach altogether. We are using a lot of textural differences. In a business center, what is really, really important is that we have these long, long corridors with suites on either side. And these corridors become really boring and really monotonous. So here the whole effort was how to break that, how to not make it monotonous. So we created these elements which go seamlessly from the floor to the ceiling, floor to the walls, walls to the ceiling, and it sort of merges the whole space into, it breaks the corridor and gives it a different definition. This is a small club that we've done. It's a lounge bar, it's a nightclub at the Westin Hotel in Gurgaon, where the USP was a complete change in materials that we've ever used. We used completely non-conventional materials. We used all sorts of concrete panels. We used polished concrete, colored concrete, terrazzos, faux concrete. Everything that was to do with concrete was used over here. So we used two elements. One was a big lighting element and one was these fins that we created. So the entire ceiling is a sort of a lighting element that goes through. Walls are very simple, so the whole emphasis goes onto the ceiling. And this is the space, it's a sort of a linear space. And the color palette is very strong copper bronze. This is a show home that we are doing in Kolkata. Again, here the idea was to create a very contemporary but a universally acceptable home that anyone would like to buy. So this was a very, it's very different from doing a personal house, because this needs to be universally appealing. So this was just the living areas. One punch of color that goes into every space. This is a school that we did. couple of years ago for Shiv Nagar Institute. And this is a school which was their first school, which was a campus that we created for them on almost a 40-acre site where there is housing, there are hostels, there are dining spaces, classrooms. So it's a large school. But what I wanted to show over here is the architectural character, the language that we developed. We used a lot of courtyards. All the classroom blocks are centered around these hexagonal courtyards. We used exposed brick and we used a punch of color to break it. And a lot of landscape that defined the space. So this is just a little flavor of what the school is like. I think that's, yeah.
Wow, that's a huge body of work. Thank you, Sorab and Sonali. Moving on to industrial design. Chetan Sorabn is an industrial designer associated with automotive and electronic industries for the past 14 years. He graduated in mechanical engineering and went on to do his post-graduation in product design from the prestigious National Institute of Design. He was fortunate enough to undertake varied projects in different parts of the world. He has worked in Tanzania, East Africa, creating modular disaster relief shelters which can also be used as kiosks as point of sales. Subsequently, he was associated with an automotive company in Japan to design and develop 100cc motorcycles for the highly aggressive Indian market. In the automotive sector, he has consulted on design of trucks and heavy vehicles. His association to electronic industry has connected him to South Korea. He presently works in the domain of home appliances and home electronics. Chetan's passion for creating objects has manifested into a quest for developing a new vocabulary for everyday objects. He created Epicenter Design to bring together his experiments with a new meaning to everyday objects, which besides being beautiful and functional, connect emotionally with their users and brings an element of delight. He has won many national and international awards. Some of the accolades to his credit are Opus Award, El Deco International Design Award, Red Dot Award, and Seoul International Award. He has also showcased the El Deco winning collection at the Ambion Fair, Frankfurt in 2010. Chetan has been a jury member for the Indian Design Mark since its inception and is associated with various design schools. In his free time, Chetan travels a lot for leisure and inspiration. He is also a certified open water scuba diver. Please put your hands together and welcome Chetan Sorabn.